Hello everyone! I usually don't do this kind of commentary style video where I'm actually on camera, but I thought this video would be a good one to do that, and if you like this, let me know in the comments below and maybe I'll do more of it. This week was the 20th anniversary of the Fairly Oddparents, or really more like the 20th anniversary of the show. It's really kind of the 23rd anniversary of Fairly Oddparents as an entity, but that's besides the point. So today I thought I would make a video relating to Butch Hartman, the creator of the Fairly Oddparents, because I love this show as a kid. If you watch a lot of Butch Hartman videos, this video is probably going to be a bit different from those. So if you don't know, here's the skinny on Butch Hartman. Up until 2018, Butch Hartman worked at Nickelodeon for about 20 years. In that time, he created 4 TV shows: The Fairly Oddparents, Danny Phantom, TUFF Puppy, and Bunsen is a Beast. If you're around my age, you probably recognize all of those except maybe Bunsen is a Beast, and if you're a little older than me, maybe you don't know TUFF Puppy. I've seen all of his shows except for Bunsen, and let me just say, they're honestly really good shows. I think TUFF Puppy particularly is pretty underrated, because I feel like whenever people talk about Butch, they always go, oh yeah, Butch, he made 2 shows that everyone loved and 2 shows that nobody cared about. And it's like, dude, just because you're old enough that you didn't grow up with TUFF Puppy doesn't mean it's not a good show. And it went just as long as Danny Phantom did, so what's up with that? But I digress. Since then, he's worked on a bunch of other projects, including his app with original shows called the Noog Network, his YouTube channel, he's written a book, he's had a couple podcasts, and he's had a couple side projects in terms of web series and things like that with things like the Hobby Kids Adventures, as well as what I'm going to be talking about today. He's also been working on a streaming service called Oaxis, which is apparently at the end of its beta testing right now, which is pretty cool, and I'm pretty excited for that. Today, I'm going to be talking about Butch in a fairly objective point of view. I know, what a scandal. No, but seriously, every time I see a Butch Hartman video, it's always really, really negative and kind of treats Butch as this awful person who has this facade of being a nice guy. I just kind of assume this is because some of his early controversies might have actually offended some people, and then people made angry videos about him, and then those did really well, so now you gotta get that Butch Hartman money. But obviously, I'd be kind of a hypocrite if I didn't say that part of the reason I'm making this video is for views, of course. So my point is, I'm going to be looking at this neither as a Hart fan nor as a hate man, and I should probably mention what my feelings about Butch Hartman are before I get into it. I think Butch is a legitimately nice guy. I've probably consumed tens of hours of content regarding his personality between his YouTube videos, his old podcast Speech Bubble, and his new podcast Mad Hustle, and he seems like a pretty chill guy. I think he's definitely made mistakes in the past, probably the biggest one being that he doesn't address controversies when they come up, when a lot of the times they're so small they could be considered more misunderstandings than controversies. He seems like a good guy that just kind of has some controversial opinions that aren't really worth hating him over, because with the exception of maybe one of those, aren't really harmful to anybody. With that said, this isn't going to be Simping for Butch Hartman, the YouTube video. If he does something wrong, I'm gonna call him out on it. So I've spent enough time talking about Butch. Let's talk about The Garden. The Garden was a show that Butch created and came out a couple of years ago. It's a religious cartoon, but that's pretty much the only time I'm going to mention it, except for a little bit later on, because it's not really relevant. So this isn't really about The Garden as a piece of media. From what I hear, it's a very run-of-the-mill kind of show. I haven't seen it myself, but that's just what I hear about it. The show stirred up controversy because of how it was released. There are 2 ways to watch The Garden. You can either stream it on gospeltruth.tv, or you can go to thegardencartoon.com and buy it. Before I tell you how much it costs to buy The Garden on thegardencartoon.com, let me first preface it by saying that there are 7 episodes of the show, and each episode is 5 minutes long. Alright, you got that? The Garden costs $130. $130. When I first heard this, I assumed it was being distributed by some third party, and I was like, well, that's not Butch's fault. That'd be like if you went to Walmart and got upset because a Danny Phantom DVD was overpriced. Like, he just made the show. But no, if you go to the website, it says right at the bottom, copyright 2019, Butch Hartman. So he was the one that decided it should cost $130. And to make things worse, instead of, say, you buy it and then you get a link to a hidden page on the website that has all of the episodes embedded, maybe you can download them too, When you buy the Garden, you just kind of get an email with a link to a shared Google Drive file that has the episodes in them. Dude, Butch, look at me. That is so unprofessional. A website was already built. Would it have been that hard to just put the episodes on the actual website? Okay, so I wouldn't be making this video if it was just me saying things other people have already been saying in a slightly nicer tone of voice. If you're familiar with my channel, you'll see that I like to take mysterious circumstances and kind of connect the dots. Things like the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies, the DC Extended Universe, things like that. And I'm going to try and do the same thing here. So first, I think we should try to find some kind of budget for this show. So there are 7 episodes, 5 minutes long. There are 3 voice actors. Butch wrote all the episodes himself, but he did hire one writer who actually wrote one of the episodes. There are 1 or 2 other producers that need to be paid. There's a sound engineer, or a few of those. There are animators. They had to pay Guy Moon to compose the music for the show. I'd say that making the show costs probably somewhere in the ballpark of $25,000 to $35,000. Now, I'm no expert. Maybe that's completely wrong. Maybe it's way more. Maybe it's way less. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. All that really matters is that they spent money on this show. The fact that this isn't exclusively on gospeltruth.tv tells us that it is not a commissioned piece of work, i.e. Gospel Truth didn't come to Butch and pay them to make this show, and Butch didn't pitch the idea to Gospel Truth to make a show, and they funded it and they made it. Clearly, this was something that Billionfold Incorporated, Butch's company, made by themselves with the intention of kind of selling it elsewhere. Kind of like a new age version of syndication. The goal is, of course, you sell it to a bunch of different people, and the money you bring in recoups the budget that you spent on the thing, and hopefully gets you a little more money to profit. But the thing is, I assume that since it's only on Gospel Truth and also thegardencartoon.com, that they were really the only people interested in buying it, or at least interested in buying it for a fair price, as Billionfold decided it would be. And that kind of makes sense to me, because The Garden is a religious cartoon, which means it's kind of niche, you know. A lot of, like, you know, classic distributors won't distribute clearly religious programming, because, you know, that's kind of messy legally, you know, especially in kids entertainment. You don't want parents complaining, hey, I don't want you shoving religious messages in my kid's face. I'm not religious, or I believe in this religion instead, and I don't want the Christian faith being spread there. Or I guess from what I hear about The Garden, maybe the Jewish faith also makes sense there, but that's besides the point. And while Butch Hartman is a well-known Hollywood figure, this show isn't exactly material for a big-time hit show, for example. Like, you can't make a bunch of merchandise because there's only like 3 characters in the show, which you're probably not going to make merchandise anyway for a series that has a total runtime of like 35 minutes. And it doesn't have a particularly enthralling premise behind it either that might make you go, huh, you know, that could actually be a big hit. So I'm assuming Gospel Truth were the only ones that actually bought the series, of course non-exclusively, and they didn't end up paying back the full budget. Maybe they spent $20,000 on it, for example. So what do you do when you're losing money on a show like this? Well, the way I see it, you have 2 options. You could try to release the show yourself, but that would require spending more money on advertising for the show, which, if you're already losing money on a show that a bunch of people have told you isn't a hit premise, you might not want to spend more money on it. And the other option they have is to just kind of dump it on a website that they were probably making anyway for the cartoon, or at the very least cost very little, because I'm sure they have people for like running and creating websites already staffed at Billionfold, and then just kind of dump it on there and charge for it. But the second question to ask after you've made that decision is, how much do you charge for it? Like I said, it's a pretty niche show. So the question is, if you charge a low amount for the show, is there actually enough audience of people out there that will find your show when it's just kind of on a website that you can just kind of promote with your own social media? that will pay so that you can recoup the budget of the show. Maybe it's a better bet that there are a few people out there that will pay that large amount and can recoup your budget quicker. If I'm being completely honest here, after analyzing the situation, this whole show got way more press than it needed to, because if my theory is correct, and keep in mind that is an if, then this show was really just kind of a mistake that Billy and Full was trying to make up for by putting it online. It's not some major ego trip where Butch made a show to sell it for $130. It was just a mistake. But I will say that, Billy and Fold, if you're watching this, there are so many ways you can recoup the money besides just putting it on that website that cost you absolutely nothing. Option number one, put it on YouTube. I know that kids content right now doesn't make a ton of money with ads on YouTube because they're non-targeted, and obviously advertisers want to pay more money so that their ads can get seen by people in their demographic. But especially like if you uploaded these to YouTube in 2019 before COPPA became really strict in 2020, like you could have made your budget back really quickly if you put it somewhere that's monetized already. I don't know if the Noog Network YouTube channel was monetized at that point, but at least like the Butch Hartman one was. Even though it would be a little out of place there, you could just throw it on there and hope for the best. You can also put it on places like Google Play and iTunes for a price where people pay to buy the show, preferably not for $130, maybe something like $10, you know? And the best part about that is, like, unlike a website where, you know, you have to find out about the website through social media or somebody telling you about it, with something like Google Play or iTunes, there's an algorithm that will show your show to people who have bought religious content or, you know, kids shows and go, hey, you liked, you know, whatever, Team Umizoomi, you might like The Garden, and then they buy it. And you can also put it on Amazon Prime Video, where you can either put it on, like in Google Play and iTunes, where there's a set price you have to pay, or you can put it on where it's free to watch if you have Amazon Prime Video, and then depending on how many times people watch it, you get more money from that. Kind of like with YouTube, except there's no ad part of it. And also, it's ridiculously easy to put something on Amazon Prime Video. It's not like you have to like call them up and negotiate and stuff. There's literally a partner program that you can basically put anything on there. I could put something on Amazon Prime Video. It's that easy. But yeah, I'm just saying there are options. I mean, maybe Gospel Truth has some contract with them that prevents them from selling it on places like Google Play and iTunes. I don't know. But yeah, guys, that's The Garden. What do you think of all this? Let me know in the comments below. Please don't do a bunch of comments where you're just talking about how Butch is a horrible person and all that. I don't really care. Don't forget to subscribe for daily videos on the franchise you love, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.